Hello everyone, my name is Ross the Alcheminiturist and this is a challenge. In a recent live stream, as linked here, I have just put together 40 clan rants as I need them for my local game store's upcoming narrative tournament. However, up until this moment I haven't really done anything more than that, so I decided that I wanted to change it and put some paint on them as I have a game to play this weekend. I've honestly never tried painting more than just getting the model up to looking nice and then calling it done. I call this method Battle Parade, as it is more battle ready, but less parade ready. It takes me about 20 minutes to get one model done for a core unit, and honestly, up until now, that's been good enough. All the colors will be linked in the description below, as I realize that I use more as I continue on, and it gets harder and harder to keep track. My prep before actually putting brush to paint to model only involved assembly, as in the video, and then using AK Interactive's white primer to prime the entire model through the airbrush. After that, I had to decide the color scheme that would be a fit for all three time blocks. I chose brown skin and fur, blue clothes, silver metal, and then the appropriate accessory colors such as pink for the tail. I chose these colors as they are also the colors that I had previously used on my last set of clan rats a few months ago. So by using the same palette for this video, it also means that I have a very large army coherency, which to me really ties the whole army together, looking more like a cohesive whole rather than a hodgepodge of randoms smooshed together. With 10 minutes, you don't actually have as much time as you think you do. It goes by stupid quick. So the best choice for me was to grab a couple of contrast paints and paint the main blocks without going over to the other blocked areas. The very convenient, and by design, advantage that the contrast paints have is that most of the darker pools of paint look like darker shaded areas and adds depth to otherwise flat looking areas on the model. Don't forget to prep your paints by shaking them before you hit the timer, or do like I did and take time away from the challenge to get them ready to be used properly. I decided my color block order should go as fur, clothes, and metals at the end. Grabbing my smallest paintbrush, it was time to go. If you want to try this the way I did, don't forget to not pre-mix all the paints and to do so while the time is running, to really get that authentic, oh god, I'm wasting my time feeling. Speaking of wasting time, a little side note is that I usually have a microphone on and recording while I'm shooting videos, that I can make little verbal notes on what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what's going on, etc. Well, in this situation, I moved my mic and the clip holding it to my desk fell off. Luckily I caught it and had a spare clip already clipped to my painting desk, so I slotted the microphone into that clip and got back to work. Once the other two contrast paints were on, I went and painted all the metal one color. I'm not a huge fan of Skaven having shiny armor or weapons, and even less of a fan of clan rats having them. No Skaven leader in their right mind would outfit such disposable bodies with anything brand new. Loot the bodies of the Skaven that came before them, so you don't have to barter, trade, or steal from other clans. Just seems to make more sense, don't you think? I really tried to avoid getting paint on the eyes and teeth in this model, to save me having to do a rush job of painting them back white. It just makes a little bit more sense to slow down for a moment, then to take longer repainting. That being said, time is of the essence and proper rusting and weathering is not part of the plan for this model. And with that, before you know it, time was up. Like I said before, 10 minutes is not enough time. But he's done, and it's not bad. It's just a simple, quick contrast job. Next up is the 30-minute one. Now, 30 minutes is way longer than 10 minutes. It's 3 times as long, actually. And with that, I felt like I had more time to take to paint with regular paints and not contrast. Since both of the 30 minutes as well as the 1 hour challenges have more time, and the fact that I decided to forego contrast paints, like I said before, all of the paints that I used will be down below in the description. It's especially with the 1 hour paint job. There's way too many paints that I used to list them all. Well, as with the 10-minute paint job, I tackled the 30-minute clan rat in blocks, taking more time and doing less slinging of paint and more deliberate strokes with a calmed pace. Block 1 is the fur. I told myself that taking my time and making sure that I'm not getting any paint anywhere other than the skin and fur areas was worth it. It's a lot, and I mean a lot, easier to paint within the blocks when you have more than 10 minutes of time to get all of the painting on the model done. Avoiding even the teeth and the eyes are easy at this speed, as I was taking even more controlled brush strokes. Block 2 is metal. Some metal in this model is harder to get to than others, so moving the model around to get the right angle is the smartest choice. The downside of the Clan Rat model is that most of this model, save the right arm, is all one piece, so there basically is no such thing as painting in sub-assembly. You kinda have to just watch where your bristles are going and manipulate the model's orientation to get the proper angles to paint in all the nooks and crannies. Block 3 is the cloth. Trying to get the paint to not go on the tail was actually an easier time at this point than it was in the 10-minute time. The harder part was making sure I was not mistaking cloth for an armor plate that I may not have painted. All in all, this block was probably the easiest and most straightforward of all of the blocks. I take that back. The hardest part was remembering that my phone only lets me have it on for 10 minutes without tapping to wake it back up, and so I had to keep taking a couple of moments and pressing the button. Grabbing my color wheel to make sure that my colors are complementary and pleasing for more people than just myself. And I know I should be painting this for me, but still, I am putting this out for the world to see, and I would like you to see and like the colors and them be complementary as well. And then disaster struck. I tried to get a little bit more comfortable and moved my chair backwards slightly, but somehow I hooked my headrest underneath the top shelf of the shelving unit behind me, popping it off supports, spilling 30 models all over the floor, shattering my Tamiya extra thin cement, and breaking a Slanesh Demonette. I did pause the timer for this, quickly go and get everything put up onto my table over to the side, and got back to work. Since I had more time, I decided to add extra smaller colors that may draw the eye just a little bit, using Mephiston Red to add some of that complementary color I was just mentioning before I got horribly derailed by a complete accident. The tail, in my opinion, should be pink. A nice, rich pink tail is great. Unfortunately, my Emperor's Children paint was a little too thin and watered down for my liking, so I switched to pink horror in the pot. Most of my paints aren't in the pots really. I have slowly but surely been transferring them all to dropper bottles to make using my DIY wet palette easier to use. I added the pink to the ears as well. It makes a nice break from the block of brown and blue right around them. A quick wash with my favorite wash, Agrax Earthshade, and it was time to go back and do some highlighting using dead white on the eyes and teeth and the tips of the fur, a lighter brown on the fur before white, and sky blue for the cloth. Then to finish out the very last minute, I painted the base black, which is a nice step up from the 10-minute model where I had to leave the base just the primed color. And there we go, a 30-minute clan rat. I do wish that I would have taken more shots like this for each model when I was done with them, like I did with this one. Maybe next time I'll think of that. Finally, we get to the 1 hour model, my favorite model, the most fantastic time that I had in this entire challenge. After the 10 and 30-minute times were up, I was looking forward to taking the longest time I've ever taken to paint a model of this caliber before. Like I had said earlier, I don't believe in taking this much time to do one model like this, but I had a challenge to do, so on to it. For the sake of time, I have, as you can see, sped the heck out of the footage, so instead of going through my entire process, I'll kind of just jump to the end of what happened differently, due to the fact that these models all started similarly. The first difference is that I put both dead white and pink horror together to make a lighter shade of pink, as pink horror is currently the lightest shade of pink I have, and as well and good as that is, I need to make sure I'm doing more than just flat paint jobs. I did the same for the ears as well as the nose, and again to make more fleshy bits, just a bit more fleshy. Taking my time, I went over the teeth and the eyes with the white to brighten them back up, and then added small yellow dots to them for irises. I then washed Nuln Oil all over the metal to give it a more oily, used look, and took Agrax Earthshade to the rest of the model. Shades are amazing when done right, and right now that I have time, the best thing that I can use is the proper shade with the proper area. Shades are in no way perfect, but boy howdy do they really add a fine job of adding depth and shade to them. Probably why they're called shades. Next came what I would say was the absolute favorite part of this entire process. Highlighting. Taking a lighter brown, I then went over and looking at my model, asked myself, where would the light catch on this arm if it was shining down on it? And then I painted the lighter brown there. It really adds that extra layer of depth to the model, showing off its muscles and making areas pop both outwards with light and inwards with shadows. Since I was still on the arm, I decided to add tiny bits of white to the end of the fur to give it a slight more pop than the rest of the arms. Everything can, and if you have time, should be shown how it would be shown naturally. Jumping back to the tail, with the pink-white mixture, and adding more white and layering it in certain places, and then a tiny bit of white at the tips of the end really tied it with the rest of the model. I took care to make sure that all of the highlighted areas were showing in and around the same direction. I want to make my model look like there is light from a specific source. Then I need to make sure that the locations of the highlights make sense. Circling back to the blade, I added some of my lightest green as a more base layer for when I added my Hexwraith Flame paint. Hexwraith Flame is my go-to when I'm trying to show the power of a Warpstone. I know it can and probably should be used on things like Nighthaunt, but I don't have Nighthaunt. I have Skaven, and Skaven have a huge dependency on Warpstone. Now before you flood the comments with, you don't want your clan rats to have new gear, but you'll give them Warpstone infused weapons? That doesn't make sense. Well, you're right, it doesn't. What does make sense is the fact that this clan rat, along with the 59 of his closest frenemies, are marching to war soon in a narrative campaign, and so is my leader, who I've yet to name. And that leader has decided that he wants to curry the favor of the Council of 13 and rise up the ranks of Clan Skyer. So he has an idea to add small scraps of Warpstone to the blades in hopes that they will help. We know it won't, but he doesn't know it won't. And he's a rat, so we won't blame him too much. With the blade done, it was time to get the base finished. The other clan rats that I have done all have some wet mud texture on their bases with some grass tufts, so he gets it too. I can't have him looking out of place just because we want him to. No, he needs to fit in with the rest. It was at this point that I went back and added some more shade and highlight to make everything look just that much better. Then the bases were painted, and boom, model done. Looking back on this challenge, I do want to say that I absolutely love the 1 hour model, but doing that 40 times for just 2 units in a horde army? That doesn't seem too logical, you know? I'd rather go with the 30-minute option, base it like I did with the 1 hour option, and then when I had more time, I could always come back and add more. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.